Hello! In this video, we will take a look at how you can connect otherwise unconnected data sources in mWater and Solstice using series and subqueries. You can use series in charts and subqueries in your expressions and calculations to bring in data from different places, such as a project baseline survey, where you might track targets, and project achievement surveys, where you might track various achievements against those targets. With these methods, you'll be able to bring them together into the same dashboard and the same visualization, as long as there is a shared dimension of data. There has to be some way for the system to know what to compare. So this could be, for example, a project code, a village or town name, etc. So in a bit more detail, what are series and subqueries? Series are an option available in charts that you build in dashboards, where you can add more series beyond the initial data source from different places and show them side by side, as long as there's a shared dimension of data. In this example, we have targets versus achievements that are combined using the project code, which will be the worked through example in this video as well. If you want to do an overall calculation, any kind of expression that brings together data from two otherwise unrelated data sources, you can use what we call a subquery expression. So here we are seeing the total achievement versus the total target, 68% achieved at the moment. We'll also take a look at how to bring different data sources in with pivot tables. There's a separate video on this, but it's a good new feature. However, I would still recommend that wherever possible, you would use sites to link surveys together. This is a core design of mWater and Solstice, where you use these infrastructure locations as sites, and then cite questions or asset questions in surveys to link your survey responses to sites. That means at the database level, these sites are then linked to the surveys, and you can very easily reach out to them and compare data as well over time and through the same location. But let's work through some examples. So here in this dashboard, we see the examples I showed on the slide. So we have targets versus achievement in a chart, in a summary value, and also enumerated by project code in a pivot table. I'll show you the underlying data structure. We have a very simple project baseline survey in this example with a drop-down list of project codes and a numerical value for a target. Of course, you could add much more to this baseline survey. Then I have a separate project achievement survey that is not linked through a site, but it does have the same project code question, so that I know that there's a shared dimension of data through the project code. It has a date question and then a numerical achievement. This is what informs the underlying data here. So how do we build a dashboard like this? Let's go to visualizations, dashboards, and start a new one. I'll call it series and subqueries, and let's start with the chart. I'll drag in the chart widget and choose a bar chart to compare target and achievement. It's a survey that we need to find. So we're going to find the baseline survey and the achievement survey. For our analyses, we need to load these into our dashboard once, and then they're going to be available for all of our analyses. Let's pick the baseline first. And for the horizontal axis, I want it split by project code. Now it'll give me 1, 1, 1, 1 because it's by default just counting the amount of these surveys that have been filled in. But that's not what I want. So for the vertical axis, I will change the number of project baseline surveys to the actual target. Maybe change the color a little bit as well. I'll maybe hide the none value, and this is our targets. Let's show the values from here. So different projects, different targets. Great. And now at the bottom, I see there's this option to add another series. I'll click that, and I get essentially a whole different section recapitulating what we saw. So here I can choose the same data source or a different one. I could have some comparable value in the same survey, so I might want to visualize something else from the same survey alongside this thing. However, now I want to find the achievement that I've entered at a later date in the achievement survey. So I'll select that survey, and the absolute key thing, as I've emphasized before, is to make sure that you pick a shared dimension of data. So if I choose project code, it'll pick out all the values from the project achievement survey based on the project code and split that across the axis. Now we see at a very low value. That's again because it's just showing that there's one achievement survey has been filled out for each project in this example. I will change that to show, well, what is the actual achievement number-wise. And that's all it takes. And I can name the series, name the chart. Target is achievement. So use series to combine data as long as there's some shared element like the date axis, location name, project code, things like that. And that's step one. So how do we get the overall value? What is the subquery all about? Let's create a dynamic expression. So I'm dragging in a title or text field and then using the expression option here on the right side. And let's do a achievement divided by the total baseline. So what's the achievement so far? I pick the data source and I will pick the achievement and I will hover over the achievement number and say total. So now it's going to bring the total achievement across all the surveys I filled out in this example. This will give me a sum, but what I want to do is divide that by the total target. So that's not in the project achievement survey. Instead, I select the formulas section and the subquery option, subquery, advanced. Use a subquery to calculate a value from an otherwise unrelated table. That's exactly what we want. So what is the otherwise unrelated table? It's the baseline. Here I could add references to the outer query that could be used further in the subquery, or I could filter it by some rule. So there's more and subtle things you can do with this subquery. But this basic example, all I want is the total target. So here I now have the baseline survey and calculate again the total target. So I have the total achievement divided by the total target. Let's multiply that by 100. We should get a long number that we can then round to maybe 2 decimals and say the total achievement versus target would be that 68%. So here we used a subquery to bring two data sources together that were otherwise unrelated. Here we didn't do any split, so we didn't even need to say that we wanted split by the project code, since we're just totaling the total tally. But you can take that in a more advanced direction depending on your use case. Finally, I want to show you a fairly new feature. We're now in September 2024 from last month or the month before, about advanced secondary data sources and pivot tables. So here, let me take a baseline survey as the pivot table data source, and again split the data by project code, and in the value field put the target. So here we get project codes, targets. I'll label that as target. I will add a column to my pivot table by hovering over the header of the target and clicking the plus icon on the right side. I will label this the achievement and click into the value. And here I see that there is an advanced option at the bottom, advanced override data source. I will here pick the achievement survey, and a required field is what do I disaggregate the data by? Well, it's the project code value as we see in the rows, so that's what I'm going to select in the data. And what am I going to calculate? Well, I'm going to calculate the latest or total achievement, depending on how you structured your achievement surveys. Are you or adding a cumulative value, or always just picking the latest one? So this way we get these two different data sources, start with the baseline as the pivot table data source and an override secondary data source in the pivot table, as long as we had that shared dimension of data here, which was the project code. So here are some ways in which you can bring data together without using sites from different data sources into mWater or Solstice. Hopefully this was useful. If you have questions, reach out to problems@mwater.co or info@ at mWater.co, and we'll help you out. Keep an eye out for further guides and videos. Like and subscribe, and don't forget to have a great day.